government's official position is not to speculate on this subject. We can choose to let our minds explore other possibilities, to use our imaginations. For if we consider that astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Somewhere in the Live Stream. We are back. We're back after a 2-week hiatus. First and foremost, I want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. Happy New Year. I hope you're having a good start to your 2025. It's definitely been an interesting start to 2025, some of which we will get into later in the show. Yeah, I have been traveling all over. I do this holiday world tour every December into January. You know, we're all over the place, Jane and I. So right now, I'm actually on a undisclosed remote island somewhere. So that's where I'm at right now. Where are you guys? I want to know. I never ask this in the live streams. Where is everyone from? Where do you watch the show from? I'm super interested in that. Let me know in the chat. Just maybe a state, maybe a city. Don't dox yourself. But yeah, I don't know where all that came from. Happy New Year, everyone. Starting off with a bang here in 2025 live stream. I do want to let you guys know that the super chat and super stickers are open tonight. If you do want to help out the show, this is a very easy and instant way to support our endeavors. We're still on our way to getting that new microphone, I promise. Until then, we're stuck with the Yeti Blue. I hope it's working. Let me know if it's working in the chat. But we're almost there. We're almost there. I'm increasing, or what's the word? I'm extending the goal for a new microphone fund. So if you'd like to help us, you can do that in the super chat or super stickers tonight. Other ways you can help us out, guys, here at Somewhere in the Live Stream and Somewhere in the Skies. PayPal, buy me a coffee. All the links are in the show notes below. Suzanne will throw them in the chat as well. You could join our Patreon campaign where you get rewards in return as well. Okay, enough begging for money. I mentioned Suzanne. Guess who's joining us later tonight in the show? I cannot wait to get her on to talk about some pretty controversial, possibly UFO-connected stories later in the show. But before we bring her in later on, I want to wish her a very, very happy birthday. So be sure to send her some love in the chat as well. I'm already seeing you guys tell me where you're from here. PG76 from Syracuse, New York, my hometown. I love it. I hope you like my hat, PG76, unless you're a Yankees fan. If you're one of those, like the rest of my family. Let's see, what else do we got here, guys? Where'd all your chats from earlier disappeared? That's weird. Hello to Pat. Hello to Ruth. Hello to Dalen. Eve is here. Just want to give a what up to all of our regulars. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being patient on our hiatus. I know I look forward to this every week, just like you guys. Zutex over on Twitch. Hello to all our Twitch subscribers and viewers over there. Hello to Robert, to Meemaw from New Brunswick, Canada. Ooh. Some interesting synchronicities going on there. I won't say anything further. Hello to Jeffrey. Who else we got here? Pat, did I say hi to Pat? Hello, Pat. William is here from Benton, Louisiana. Columbus, Ohio for Jeffrey. Warsaw, Poland. That's so cool. That's so cool. First time I get to see a live Mima. We're so happy to have you here. Robert from Lakeland, Florida. Dalen in Australia. All Work Low Pay is here. Hello. Hi to Michelle. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Ryan. Hello from Roswell, Georgia. Love the name. I love Georgia too. Peachtree Street, one of my favorite places to party. Hello to Leslie from Memphis, Tennessee. Riney Horn is joining us from Canada. Hello to Boromir. Greetings from Yorkshire. Wow. William, thank you so much, buddy, for the $20 super chat. Glad you're back. Keep doing what you do, Ryan. I will, William. As long as you guys want me to keep doing this, I will keep doing this. I have a ball. It looks like I'm getting abducted by aliens. I can see that light above me. If I can, a little distracting. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that, William. Truly, truly. Oh, you can also see my little communion book over there. I'll give you guys a little rundown on that. So I'm just going to say, I'm in Hawaii right now. I know. I feel very lucky, very fortunate, especially for you East Coasters. I hear you're having it a little rough right now. So I apologize for rubbing it in right now. But yes, I'm on the island of Oahu, and they have the best used record, book, CD, movie, multimedia used store in Honolulu. And it is called Ideas. There we go. They've changed the name several times. It's called Ideas. It's run by some dude from Hawaii who's been here like his whole life, and he has just amassed a wealth of multimedia. And I will say this, one of the best collections of UFO books I have ever seen. Every time I come to Hawaii, I'm sure to go to Ideas, and I always find something, a rare book, and this time was no different. So I'm going to show off a couple of the books I got at Ideas for you guys. Of course, I got the classic Communion by Whitley Strieber. I've got like 10 copies of this book, but every time I find one, I just have to buy it. I'm going to go for the Guinness Book of World Records for collecting the most copies of Whitley Strieber's Communion. There's something about the cover. Everyone's said it. Everyone knows it. It's just such a striking cover to a book, and I just love it. I love it. So I had to get that one. I got this cool book as well. We Are Not Alone, which is really cool, by Walter Sullivan. I got a couple rare ones, really rare ones. We got Flying Saucers by Frank Edwards. I want to give a service announcement to the owner of Ideas. Stop putting price tags on the front covers of your books, man. What are you doing? Like, these things are so hard to get off. They're not like the easy peel ones. Like, they will ruin the cover. I ruined the cover of this one, We Are Not Alone. As you can see, those white marks, I did that on accident. So Jane told me YouTube how to get those things off properly. Of course, I didn't do that because I'm lazy. But and the last one I have here, The Truth About Flying Saucers by Amy Michelle. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I know this is a very rare book, and I'm so excited that I found it. So yeah, I got me some paperbacks. They had, we're talking hundreds of books, just on UFOs. Thousands and thousands of books in general, comic books, you name it, they have it. So if you're ever in Honolulu, be sure to check out Ideas and tell the owner to stop putting price tags on the front covers. It's the best part of UFO books, right? Just going back up in the chat. Aloha, Metal Hendrix. Welcome, my friend. Todd says, you're in Hawaii, but you can't afford a new microphone. Todd, I have explained this to people who've asked me how I get to go to Hawaii. Trust me, brother, it's on the cheap, and it's because my future parents-in-law live here. And I also have a lot of frequent flyer miles from traveling for work and stuff. So trust me, I ain't no jet setter. And coming to Hawaii is a luxury that I could never, ever afford if it weren't for my incredible partner. So that's kind of the reason for that, my friend. Hello to Good Morning UFO. Welcome, welcome. Gareth is here as well. Hello again to Todd. Okay, guys. If I missed you, I'm sorry. We got to get going on the news. What else do I have here? Oh, before we get to the news, one more thing. I promise. So I ran a contest where I asked you guys to rate and review the podcast Somewhere in the Skies on Apple, the largest platform out there. We are gaining some traction over there, and we are getting up in the rankings, and I want that to continue. So I decided to do a fun little contest where if you rated and reviewed the show on Apple Podcasts, I would put all of those ratings and reviews into a random number generator online, and it would spit out a winner for me. And so I set a deadline, and we got a ton of ratings and reviews. So that was super fun. It really, really helped out the show. And this was our winner. Crush the Bear 502 with this review. So what I did is I announced this on our Twitter, on our Facebook. I'm announcing it right here. I announced it on Blue Sky. I have not yet heard from Crush the Bar 502. So the deal is, if I do not hear from Crush the Bar 502 by midnight of January 7th, we will extend the contest. I'm going to extend the contest to January 14th. So from right now until January 14th, midnight of January 14th, if you go over to Apple Podcasts and you rate and review Somewhere in the Skies, you will also be put into the raffle. Everyone who was in the original will also be in this one as well. So you're grandfathered in, guys. I've got them all collected. And the way for me to know if you rated and reviewed is to send me a screenshot. That's how I got this one. Send me a screenshot of your review and your rating, whether it's through email or through DMs on our social media. Be sure to send me a screenshot of your rating and review, and you will automatically be put into our contest. Again, deadline is January 14th at midnight Eastern Standard Time, and you will become a part of the raffle to win the entire first volume of the Blue Book comic book, which is inspired by Project Blue Book. It's the art is by Michael Oyming, who's been on the show several times now. He's presented at Anomicon, and it's an incredible, incredible book. And you get the entire first volume, which is about the Betty and Barney Hill abduction. Such an awesome, awesome gift. And I'm also including a surprise gift as well. So you will win both of those gifts if you go over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review us right now and up until January 14th, where we will announce our winner if I do not hear from Crush the Bar 502. Sound good? All right. Awesome comic, Metal Hendrix says. Agreed. Good morning, UFO. Manifesto was wild. Yeah, we'll get there, Amy, later in the show for sure. Watching from New Mexico. Love it. All right, let's do it, guys. Let's get to the news. And one last thing before we get to the news, our last story tonight, I do want to give a little, I guess, a warning, a trigger warning. It's going to be discussing the Cybertruck bombing incident, which I'm sure everyone has heard of at this point. And we will be discussing it for a very sort of specific, controversial reason, but I did want to give sort of a trigger warning here that if you are sensitive to this disturbing story or things like it, that will be our last story of the night. We'll be going to a commercial break. We'll be covering a couple things with Suzanne, and then our last story will be the Cybertruck incident. So, yeah, there we go. That is our warning. I will give one more trigger warning before we actually get to that story, but I did want to let you guys know that before we get there. So let's start. Let's start with some good news leading us into 2025. And that is the National UFO Historic Records Center has finally opened its doors to the public. They had like a ribbon cutting ceremony, which happened a little over a month ago. Good friend and colleague of the show, Christy, come on. That's my sister. A good friend of the show and colleague, Chrissy Newton, actually got to go to the ribbon cutting ceremony. It was so cool. She was sending me videos of everything going on there. Really, really, really cool. But now it's open to the public, which is so exciting. So the National UFO Historic Records Center is a nonprofit that aims to archive historical government documents and all other forms of media on UFO encounters. David Marler, director of the National UFO Historic Records Center, explained that the goal of the facility is to preserve these items and open them to viewing and research by the public, academics, and ufologists. Boom. This guy right here. I cannot wait to get an appointment to go to this. But I have a fun video that was shot last month about the ribbon cutting ceremony and gives us a little bit more detail on the entire UFO Historic Records Center, how it came to be, where it is, what you can find there, and hopefully entice people to go. It's now open to the public, which is so cool. So let's give this a watch, and we'll talk a little bit more about it on the other side.
Momentous day for the folks who take UFO sightings seriously. I mean, a lot of them are right behind me right now at the ribbon cutting ceremony, and that's because these two portable classrooms you see they're standing in front of here at Martin Luther King Elementary School are now the new home of the National UFO Historical Records Center, the largest collection of UFO sighting documents in the country and maybe the world. There are easily thousands and thousands of real case files packed away inside these buildings, and thanks to a new partnership with Rio Rancho Public Schools, the amateur collectors who kept all those documents safe over the years are finally making them available to the public.
It's literally overwhelming. People don't have any conception until they come here how much material that we're talking about, and it really, I think, makes people pause and realize there's a lot more to this UFO subject than I ever thought.
David Marler knows the idea of a UFO records archive probably sounds silly to some folks, but he says that skepticism is welcome.
We really don't care what your take is on the UFO subject. In fact, we welcome differing opinions, differing perspectives.
Marler is the executive director of the National UFO Historical Records Center.
So here's Artesia, New Mexico, January 16th, 1951.
A nonprofit organizing hundreds of thousands of declassified government documents, news clippings, photos, videos, and more evidence from across the globe, all under one roof.
It's a traditional historical archive dedicated to a non-traditional subject. We want serious research to be conducted here in the hopes ultimately of maybe gaining a better insight into this mystery that we've been dealing with now for 75 plus years.
And he says there's countless connections to be discovered.
We have a lot of reports from 1966.
Now that all these case files are together.
Some organizations interviewed witnesses that the other did not, and vice versa. And sometimes there's new insights provided by one investigative organization that was never obtained by this one. The more minds, the more set of eyeballs we have looking at the data, as with any subject, the better we're going to be, if we truly want to try to understand what we're dealing with when we talk about UFOs.
Marler's collection, which used to live inside his Rio Rancho home, is largely a collection of other collections sent in from fellow UFO archivists. And with all this extra space donated by Rio Rancho Public Schools, Marler says they're ready for more.
We have about 10 to 12 other collections that are also in the queue. 2 individuals I know in Ohio have stated, "You're already in my will. If anything happens to me, my material is coming to Rio Rancho."
And whether or not you believe in aliens, Marler says the overwhelming amount of documentation is worth preserving.
We feel it's important because it is an element of history, it is an element of our culture, and so that's really how we try to view it. And if we can't divine the answers to the UFO mystery, maybe in 40, 50, 60 years someone might, but they can only do that by looking at the data.
Amazing. So cool. I've always, since I became a ufologist, the self-proclaimed term that many of us coin ourselves, my dream was that Stanton Friedman, J. Allen Hynek, or Peter Robbins even would in their will leave me their entire collection, or their signed affidavit or deathbed confession or something like that. Hey, hey, who knows? Who knows? Man, my sincere wishes and health and happiness go out to Peter Robbins and to did I say J. Allen Hynek? I meant Jacques Vallée. Um, I do not wish anything bad to ever happen to them ever. But if I were to inherit their collections, that would be a dream come true. However, since the Historical Records Center has opened, everything should go there. Everything. I don't care who you are. Everything should go to the center. Everything should be under one roof, in my personal opinion. And this will be a mecca for UFO researchers. At one point, it was the Roswell UFO Museum, who have a enormous amount of files and stuff like that. But I mean, that pales in comparison to what David Marler has accomplished and achieved here. So it's super, super exciting. I've got just a few more little blurbs here from a wonderful article from the Roswell Daily Record. With New Mexico holding such a strong historical connection to the UFO phenomenon, Marler noted that he couldn't think of a more appropriate place to house these files than Rio Rancho. In the coming months and years, as interest in the topic of UFOs heats back up, Marler eagerly awaits the opportunity to share his growing collection with the public. So cool. Last thing here, with the facility now open, potential visitors are encouraged to visit the center's website to schedule visits to browse the archives. So they're not really accepting walk-ups right now. This is by appointment because it is very, I mean, it's not tiny, but it's not massive and huge. It can't hold hundreds and hundreds of people. So they would prefer that you make an appointment to come. I talked to David this morning, actually. We're getting him back on the show very soon to talk all about this. But he is neck deep right now in appointments, in things over there. He's like a chicken with his head cut off right now, running around trying to get everything in order. And it's just going incredible. So he did send his well wishes to everyone. I told him we'd be talking about this story tonight, and I do look forward to having him on the show, hopefully sometime in February when things calm down a little bit. But if you would like to make an appointment to go to the historical center, I talk too fast. I start hiccuping. That's me. For information and to book your appointment, you can visit the New Fork website, and I'm going to give that to you guys here, www.nufohrc.org. Again, that's nufohrc.org to learn more and to book your appointment. All right, there's my commercial for the Historical Center. Thank you, Suzanne, for putting that in the chat as well. Hello, James Craig. Hello, Michael Huntington. Eichinger is here as well. The biologist. Hello, guys. So good to have you here. So good to have you here. All right, let's move to our next story, and that does involve our good friend and colleague that we mentioned, Chrissy Newton. Come on down. This story comes to us from Chrissy over at the Debrief, and this was an interesting one. So bear with me, guys. I'm going to read straight from here. The title is Surprising Link Between UAP Sightings and Economic Conditions Revealed in Controversial New Research. So, new research reveals a surprising connection between UFO sightings and financial conditions across the U.S., according to a study by a team with the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Dr. Ohad Rava of Hebrew University and Dr. Nathan Goldstein of Bar Ilan University have introduced innovative methods of measuring public interest by analyzing UAP reports. So, they have revealed that a surprising link between UAP sightings and macroeconomic conditions at the U.S. county, state, and city level is apparent. Their findings challenge conventional metrics for assessing economic behavior, revealing how UAP sightings align with financial trends, inform policymaking, and provide insights into public adaptation to economic shocks, such as COVID-19 pandemic and shifts in monetary policy. So some of the key findings with this study were as follows. The researchers analyzed data from the National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, which spans over 20 years and is tracked across the U.S. Ravaugh and Goldstein discovered that UAP sightings tend to occur more frequently in wealthier areas, but also tend to increase during economic downturns and decrease during periods of economic stability in those same regions. This, they say, suggests that interest in unusual events like UAPs fluctuate based on broader societal conditions, especially during times of uncertainty. This may point at various behaviors ranging from, say, mental breakdowns to extended leisure time. When unemployment rises, for example, the extent of UAP sightings increases because people may have more time on their hands, or otherwise they may be affected by the mental stress involved with unemployment. The key point, however, is that the patterns of UAP sightings are not only countercyclical, but they also exhibit a positive correlation with wealth cross-sectionality. At any given point in time, the extent of UAP sightings tend to be higher in wealthier regions, going against a mentally related hypothesis. The study found that in regions where UFO sightings are more common, people reacted less strongly to changes in economic policies. This suggests that shifts in public attention can influence economic outcomes. The researchers proposed that tracking UFO reports can offer unique insights into how public attention fluctuates over time and across different regions. The recent paper by Ravaugh and Goldstein, Looking Up at the Sky, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena and Macroeconomic Attention, appeared in the journal Nature, Humanities, and Social Sciences Communications in December of 2024. So a lot to process there, guys, but it's interesting. You know, I've had conversations in the past with people about this, and we won't dig too deep or get into semantics on it, but you know, I'm always asked, like, why is the UFO field, those interested in UFOs, or those you see at like MUFON or UFO conventions, why do they always look like me? Why are they always like middle-aged white men? And look, there's no arguing. There are privileges that someone like myself have had, will have, unfortunately, because of society, because of race, because of gender, because of all these different things. And I've been asked by, you know, friends who are people of color, or friends who are in the LGBTQ plus community, and things like that. And they always ask, like, where are my people? Like, why am I not being represented in these communities? And, you know, obviously I don't have the right answer or the one sweeping, huge, correct answer for something like that. But it is a very, very good point and a very valid observation. And when you look at a study like this, where it says, you know, UFOs and stuff are often cited in times of economic downturn. Yeah, people are at home. They're looking up in the sky more. You know, we look at that whole thing back when the UFO craze happened in the 40s and 50s, and a lot of it was what they termed as like post-war jitters, like this idea of like, there's things in the sky, they're gonna destroy us, like this, that. So more people are, you know, not paranoid, but more apt to look up. So, you know, we saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic, like UFO reports just skyrocketed because people were at home. People were looking for any excuse to get outside of their home and, you know, probably look up in the sky and see something. And as we're seeing with this whole drone thing, people are not used to seeing things in the sky. They're so focused on the ground and on their phones. So even something as conventional as a small airplane or a commercial drone, people's minds are not used to even seeing those things in the sky at night. So they're automatically like, oh my God, what is that? What is that? Could be a conventional explanation, or it could be a genuine UFO. But I do find that interesting. The reason I bring up race, gender, sexuality, and in terms of UFOs is when you have wealthy people, oftentimes painted as white, not painted, but literally they're white, they're wealthy. It's a thing. We all know it. We can't deny it. I'm not going to argue that with anyone. You have more time on your hands. It's as simple as that. You have resources. I mean, look at Robert Bigelow, freaking billionaire. Gets to buy a ranch and go investigate it with the DOD because he's a freaking billionaire. Like, money affords opportunity. It's unfortunate. It's the way the world works. And it happens a lot in the US. So, I mean, it seems so simple, yet, when you get into macroeconomics, as stated in this article, it starts to get more complex. But yeah, it's an interesting study nonetheless. But my answer for anyone who is considered or identifies as a minority is you're always welcome here. I would love more diversity in this field, in this community, on my show. So if you're out there and you are a UFO researcher, if you're interested in the topic and you feel like you're not being represented, I would love to at least be an ally and give you that opportunity to come on my platform and do that. So just an open door to anyone out there. Enough of that. I don't want to get too preachy with all this. I found this article fascinating. I thought Chrissy did a wonderful job on this. And yeah, interesting story. Let me go up in the chat and see what you guys are saying here. Oh, you guys are having a ball in there. You don't need me. You do not need me. Diversity in the UFO community. Amen, William. Amen to that. All right. Pat asks, Ryan, does Hawaii have much UFO UAP activity? Yes. 100%, man. There's a place called Waimanalo, excuse me. I'm still getting used to all the Hawaii names over here. If you guys saw Jane trying to direct me, she's my navigator when we're driving, and she's like, go down Capellini Street, and I'm like, Kappa, what's happening? Where am I? What's going on? Yeah, that's my ignorant mainland coming out. All this to say, yes, they have a lot of UFO activity. I covered some of it with Lopaka Kapanui, my really good friend and colleague, on a documentary right here on YouTube. If you go down to my documentaries and films playlist, you can watch Mysteries of Hawaii with Lopaka Kapanui. It's my most viewed documentary to date. Not that I've made many. When I say documentary, I mean it's like a YouTube documentary. The documentary I'm making right now, the Shag Harbor one, that is a full-blown real documentary. Trust me, I'm feeling the pain of making it right now. But I love it. Metal Hendrix says, anyone spot Ryan in the program documentary? James Fox is a UFO national treasure. Yes, I was featured very briefly in the program. I had the incredible opportunity to join James Fox in Scotland when he came over to the UK. And I got to go to the actual site of the Calvine UFO photo. Allegedly. That can still be debated. But yeah, you can see a photo still of me in the documentary. Wish he had only shot me from the neck up. I definitely needed about 100 more hikes. James beat me up there by 2 miles, didn't lose his breath at all. And here's me huffing all the way up there. And yeah, he didn't catch me in the best of light. So James, I'm blaming you for that, brother. I'm also blaming the chocolate and pizza for months on end. And then you can also see me in a drone shot, an aerial shot of Calvine. There's 2 people crouched down, kind of looking over, and James actually kind of used it as a reenactment of the photographers of the Calvine UFO photo. So it was cool. I actually unwittingly became like a reenactor of one of the Calvine photographers. So that was so much fun. It's a memory I will hold so dear, and I get to put it on my IMDb page. So there you go. Boom, Suzanne says. Love it, love it. All right, back to the news, guys, because we have so much to cover, and I don't want to keep you guys too long. I'm just starting my day. It's only 11:40 a.m. over here, which is crazy. I feel like the whole world is passing me by. I still got my morning coffee. I caught you in it, Robert says. Hi, Ashley. Welcome to the show. You guys are just, I love that I like don't have to like check the chat. I do it by habit, but like you guys are just like having your own conversation. This is why we do this. I love it. I love it. I should mention to you guys, we have a Discord. I'll mention it again at the end of the show, but we continue the conversation over on Discord after these live streams. There's a link in the show notes for the Discord. I'm sure we'll put it up there at some point as well. But yeah, if you want to join us over there, we are growing very fast over there, and we're building a really fun Discord server. So again, shout out to Hides and Long Grass, John, everyone who has helped me put that together, Suzanne as well. And yeah, join us over there after the show, where we will continue the conversation. And let's do that. Let's continue the conversation with our next story. What's in the coffee, Ryan? Just coffee. Just coffee, dude. Yeah, it's not 9 p.m. in the UK where I know I'm used to doing the live stream, where I got my beer and my whiskey. Too early for that, even for me. But let's move to our next story, guys. Unfortunately, we recently lost former President Jimmy Carter, who I know Suzanne had the incredible opportunity to meet. I might be able to pull the photo of her with Jimmy Carter. I'll put it up on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. She got to meet one of our best presidents when it comes to UFOs. And the reason for that is because he's one of us. Gobble, gooble. Gooble, gobble. Whatever that Freaks movie says. Google, gobble, one of us, one of us. Jimmy Carter is a UFO experiencer. But not only that, there is a very controversial alleged story of a meeting that Jimmy Carter had. But before we get to that meeting, let's talk a little about the late Jimmy Carter and his UFO sighting. In 1973, before he was president, he filed a report with the International UFO Bureau claiming he had seen a UFO in October of 1969. So I'm going to go ahead and play a video for you guys that goes in depth on the sighting and Jimmy Carter's push to try to get UFO information out to the public when he did become president. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video for you right now. We'll talk a little bit more about Jimmy C on the other side. Rest in peace, my friend. Here we go. There you go, guys. Our UFO president tried to get files released, did get some, as mentioned in that clip. But, you know, once he became president, there was obviously a lot more pressing issues, as there often are. So maybe not as much as he had hoped, but at least he got something out. But there might be a reason why a lot of it didn't come out. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. Fun little fact. Did you guys know that he was a peanut farmer? I love that. I love that. Him and Thomas Jefferson were the only two presidents who were former peanut farmers. There's actually a peanut statue, I think in Georgia, I want to say, that is dedicated to Jimmy Carter. So there you go. I'm a big peanut butter fan. Where's Ryan today? J. Ellen Heineken says. Your guess is as good as mine, man. I don't know anymore. All I'll say is aloha. Let's get to the more controversial aspect of the Jimmy Carter UFO connection. Oh, I forgot. Also, the explanation for Jimmy Carter's UFO sighting, which has never been proven, is that the object he saw, it was classified as a high-altitude barium release cloud balloon launched from Eglin Air Force Base. Another balloon. Womp womp. Let me see here. Okay, this is where it gets weird. This is where it gets really weird. Former peanut farmer and President Jimmy Carter. President Carter's disturbing briefing on UFOs and religion. So, a former NASA researcher by the name of Ed Harris claimed the following about Jimmy Carter. Quote, President Carter was a deeply religious man who had also witnessed a UFO, and everyone thought that he would be the one to finally release all of the UFO info to the public. But as the story goes, he was repeatedly stonewalled. Eventually, the CIA had the talk with him. And afterwards, it was reported that he sunk his head into his hands and not only began to deeply sob, but was visibly disturbed for some weeks afterwards. He was told, allegedly, that the major religions, including Christianity, were programs created by extraterrestrials to prevent us from destroying ourselves while they ran their experiments on us, and that the extraterrestrials, actually created us. At this moment, it became clear to Carter that such information could cause tremendous economic and social upheaval and basically shatter religion. And again, Jimmy Carter was a Christian. So if this is true, I would imagine it would be paradigm shifting and very somber and sobering and disappointing for him and all of humanity. So yeah. Again, this is all just alleged. There's no proof or documentation for any of this, but he did have a UFO sighting, and I thought it was interesting to also bring up this sort of mythical meeting that he had that left him crying. So there you go. Despite all of this, guys, I do want to say, it's never a good thing to lose somebody. And Jimmy Carter seemed like a cool, nice guy. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, all politicians are scum, right? I mean, at the end of the day. But I don't know. I don't know if it was like that back then. Things have changed so much when it comes to politics and left from right, up from down, and all that. He just seemed like an honest, upstanding citizen, and wanted to lead the country. So yeah. Rest in peace to Jimmy Carter. That's for sure. All right. Let me see what else I have. Oh, one more. Yep, one more story, guys, before we take a quick commercial break and get to the more controversial stuff going on out there. Do you guys know who this is? Anyone? Bueller? This is Lenval Logan. If any of you did see James Fox's new documentary, The Program, you may have seen Lenval in that documentary. He is a former member of the UAP Task Force, and he has come forward, and the first time we really saw him was in James's documentary. And this story comes to us from the YouTube channel UFO TV, which I believe is German, if I'm not mistaken. And the title is Former UAP Task Force Member Claims to Have Witnessed the Calvine UFO. Bringing it back. Circling it back to Calvine once again, guys. What? This guy saw the Calvine UFO? What is he talking about? What on earth is he talking about? So Lenval Logan, who worked 20 years in the USAF and was also a member of the UAPTF, saw a diamond-shaped object in 1990 that was darting around the sky that he says looked exactly like the object in the now famous Calvine UFO photo. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip for you guys. This is Lenval talking on UFO TV and going a bit more in depth on the sighting that he says might have a connection to the Calvine UFO. Give this a watch.
The sun was just coming up, and I'm, bored. I'm looking out the window, chewing on my cheesesteak, and all of a sudden there's this diamond arrowhead-looking thing going in and out, zipping around, and then going in the clouds. But when it would go into a cloud, it would change vectors inside the cloud and pop back out again. And I was like, "Hey, look at that!" And then there was another guy that was eating a sandwich too, and he's standing up, the two of us are sitting in the chair, and we're all trying to watch this thing. And you could see it was turning from like black and whitish. I'm not sure if because there was water on it and there was the shine, but it was going in and out. And we were like, what is that? And then all of a sudden I had this thought. I was like, this is probably one of our projects and I'm going to be doing the coolest job ever. So maybe shut my mouth and just kind of ignore it. And finally, it just kind of disappeared. It went into a cloud or something. And I got to my unit and I waited for a while, get comfortable. And then I went and we have what we call a weapons and tactics officer. And I talked to him and I said, hey, so what's it out there that's doing all this weird stuff? And he looked at me like I was an idiot. He goes, I don't know of anything that does that. Now, this is at the end of the Belgian wave, but I didn't know anything about the Belgian wave. So it didn't connect. Yeah. So went to Desert Storm, came back from Desert Storm, and then when that British AWACS landed, and they asked me to go on board, I figured, yeah, this would be great, learn something new. And then while I was up there, I was like, so you guys see everything in the sky? And they're like, yeah. I was like, all right, I got a question to ask you guys. What's out there that does the ziggy zaggy thing and, real fast? And they looked at me like I was an idiot. And then finally the guy goes, show him. And it was a map of Europe, and you could see all the aircraft flying around. They're just doing the little jumps, and whatever. And all of a sudden, saw something go passing through real fast. And I was like, yeah. Who's that? And
this was like, a video or real time?
It was like a video, like a recording.
Yeah.
A screen capture, I would call it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that guy. And they're like, you know? And I was like, no, I don't know. They're like, come on, Logan, you know. And I was like, look, I don't know. And they said, that's your SR-71 from back in the day. So I was like, well, that's not him. I was like, the one that does the ziggy zaggy thing. And they said, okay. And he looks at his friend again. He goes, show him the other one. And they showed me, again, the same area, slightly different, but same area. And here's this thing. Every sweep of the radar, he was somewhere else. And I was so excited, I started cursing. I was like, yeah, that MF right there, that guy, who is that? And they're like, Logan. I was like, look, let's not go through that again. Who's that? And they're like, come on, Logan. And they actually thought I knew. And I was like, I said, I don't know who that is. And I told them what I saw. Gave them more descriptive information. They're like, Logan, we have been trying forever that whenever we see this guy, to reach out to him on the radio. They never respond. We have vectored aircraft towards them, and they zip away. And it was almost like every sweep of the radar, he was in a different position. And I was like, so you mean you guys don't know who he is? And they're like, no. They said, we've just figured it's you Americans playing tricks on us. And I was like, I said, hold on a second. So you know that this guy exists? Does your squadron know? He said, yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke in the squadron because everybody knows. And I was like, and nobody's doing anything about this? I said, we got to protect the airspace, all the other stuff, the traditional stuff that you would think of. And they're like, how are we supposed to protect from someone that won't answer us and we can't even get close to? And I was like, good point. And so after that mission was over, I thanked him and I said, it was just one of those things that just stayed in the back of my head that if I ever get the chance to know anything more about this, I'm going to look into it.
There you go, guys. What do you think? Did Lenval actually see the same craft? I mean, it was over in Europe. It was over in Germany. Was it U.S. Tech? Was it alien? What was it? Did he see the same thing? The way he describes the zigzagging motion, the arrowhead shape, is extremely reminiscent of how the quote-unquote photographers described the movement of the craft, the Calvine craft. Fascinating. I'm so happy Lenval has come forward. He just seems like such a cool dude to talk to. So I'm going to talk to him. Lenval will be on Somewhere in the Skies in the very near future. I'm working on it right now, and it's looking really good. So we will be having Lenval on the show in the future to talk about his work with the UAP Task Force and maybe dig a little bit deeper into this sighting and everything else going on with that. So I'm super, super psyched about that. There's one thing I want to bring up that Ruth Bradford said in the chat, because it's worth discussing. She said, sorry to say that Calvine UFO pic does still look much like a reflected rock in water than something in the sky. I do agree. It looks very much like that. However, my issue with that is the documentation by the photographers. The cook who came forward and said that he worked with the photographers, and the story that they told him about what had happened, and then they disappeared. You've got Craig Lindsay, the RAF officer who first interviewed the photographers, who I had the incredible opportunity to spend hours and hours with when he was in Scotland with James and I. And then we went to the actual site where the photo was taken. We can't definitively prove that we found the actual location, the exact location where the photo was taken, but we're pretty damn sure. According to the person who brought us there, who was credited in the program, so be sure to check that out if you want to know who was the one to bring us up there and show us the location. We were able to sort of triangulate things, and we do believe that we found the exact vantage point where these photographers were, and we scanned the entire area. We asked our tour guide. We spoke to people all around Pitlochry, which is the closest place to Calvine, and there's no water anywhere near where this occurred. Not within miles and miles, kilometers of where this photo was allegedly taken. So I hate to say it, but like from my personal experience with looking into this case and going to the alleged site where the photograph was allegedly taken, there's a lot of allegedlys with this because I want to be careful. I'm not making any definitive statements that we solved the Calvine location or anything like that. But we are pretty damn convinced. I am, at least. I know James is. But look, like, there are going to be skeptics who say, no, that's not the place. And that's fine. That's fine. Welcome to ufology. Everything's anecdotal until it's not. But we tried our hardest. We went, according to the RAF press officer who first interviewed the photographers, we went to where he told us to go. Like, what else more could we really do? And we hiked the miles and miles and miles up there, and we took photos from all different places. We had a drone doing stuff as well, and we're pretty damn sure we found where that photo was taken, like literally up to the fence and the trees overhead of where the photo was taken. And we were, sort of able to cross-reference them. And again, this is all conjecture. But we think we found it, and where we think we found it, no water, none at all. But that's just my side of the story. I don't expect anyone to believe me, but there it is. And it sort of plays out in the program, as you saw. So yeah, I understand, Ruth. It does very much look like what you say it looks like, and it very well could be that. This could all be a hoax, all of it. But I'm not convinced yet of that, especially after actually going to the site. And, keyboard warriors can sit back on their computers and argue and debate this case till the end of time. But until you actually go there and see the location, allegedly, it's all just conjecture. But yeah, that's all I'll say about that. All right, guys. So let's take a very quick commercial break, and we're going to come back with the one and only Suzanne Landers to talk all about some really interesting conversations that have taken place recently on the Sean Ryan show. And it's going to get a little dark, a little heavy. So just warning you now. I'll do a warning when we come back. But yeah, we got to touch on it because it's making national, international headlines, and the UAP topic might have a tangential connection to some of this dark and disturbing stuff. So stick around. We will be right back with that. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Stay tuned. Greetings, everyone. Ryan Sprague here, host of Somewhere in the Skies. For over 7 years and more than 400 episodes, the Somewhere in the Skies podcast has always been free to listen to, but it's not free to create. So we offer several ways to help support our efforts and get rewards in return. If you listen to the podcast on Apple, you can click the subscribe button at the top of your Somewhere in the Skies feed to become a premium Apple subscriber. Or you can join our Patreon campaign with several tiers available. Both of these options give you the same benefits and rewards: ad-free episodes, early access to the main show, and bonus episodes and content. Help keep the lights on at the Somewhere in the Skies HQ, and help us continue to grow by becoming a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/somewhereskies, or by clicking the subscribe button at the top of your Apple feed. Thank you for your continued support, and keep looking up. All right, we are back, guys. Welcome to Somewhere in the Live Stream. If you are just joining us, we are talking all the latest UFO news and headlines. We talked about Jimmy Carter, his UFO sighting, RIP Jimmy Carter. We talked about a former member of the UAP Task Force who allegedly saw a similar, if not identical, object to the Calvine UFO photo, which is really interesting. We talked economics and UFOs. We covered it all, but we're about to cover even more with you guys. And we are in just a moment going to bring in our incredible moderator, Suzanne. But I'm going to go ahead and summarize our next story for you guys. And I have a video to show you. And after the video, I will bring Suzanne in to get her instant reactions to that and some awesome information that she has dug up on all of this as well. And this story comes to us, like I mentioned before the commercial break, from the Sean Ryan Show, which is a YouTube channel and podcast by a former, I believe he was a Marine, Sean Ryan. I do apologize if I picked the wrong military branch, but he is former military. And he recently had on a gentleman named Captain F. Holmes Skip Atwater. And the title here is Remote Viewer Claims to Have Viewed 4 Underground Alien Bases. What? So, Skip Atwater was originally a counterintelligence officer. And if you're watching this on YouTube, he's the gentleman in the top left corner there. A former counterintelligence officer, the founder of the U.S. Army's Remote Viewing Unit. Starting in 1977 with the program's first code name, Gundala Wish, and later known by numerous other names, including Project Stargate, where he worked with Officer Major Scotty Watt to recruit and train the first remote viewers to be assigned to the unit. Many of the most successful operational techniques and transferable skills used throughout the duration of the project were developed by Skip Atwater. The reason we're going to talk about this, guys, is because he claims that while working under this program, that there were people who remote viewed 4 underground alien bases. So I am going to go ahead and play a clip from the Sean Ryan show where he interviewed Skip Atwater about this. So give this a watch, and then we are going to bring Suzanne in. So here we go.
8200 thing was something that I did because Pat Price walked into SRI and his normal working there in the early 70s, having come up from originally down in Burbank. He then lived in Northern California, but he would come down to do sessions because Puthoff and Targ checked him out. And so he would go in and he would do things, but they had to control him because he was a gregarious, wild cat. Is that a good? He was just uncontrollable in terms of what he would do. And he came in and on Puthoff's desk, he said, "You might be interested in this. I've been interested in this for a while, and I've found 4 UFO bases around the globe. And so you really ought to look at it." And
4 UFO bases.
Yes.
And this just came in just completely random one day. This bad comes in and here it is. 4
Right.
UFO bases around the world. Where were they? Or where are they?
Yes, they're still there. This all happened 50 years ago, a little bit more than that now. Mount Inyangani, which is a country in Africa, isolated country. Mount Hayes is up in Australia. Mount Perdido is on the border of Spain and France. And then there's one in Australia, which I can't quite remember the name of that up in Australia.
Hayes is in Alaska, correct?
Hayes is in Alaska, yes.
Okay.
Zeal, I think, might be the one down in Australia.
And so these bases, were they part of the challenge targets?
That I gave them the coordinates that Price had said, this is where I was looking. So I took those coordinates and I told them to go look at these different coordinates and see what they found there. The Stargate remote viewers.
So before we get into what they saw, what did Pat see at these bases?
He described them as inside areas where 4 different kinds of groups of people who had different duties had inside places, that they were inside these mountains.
What do you mean 4 different types of people? Races, genders? What are we talking here? Just different projects that they're on?
Yeah, these 4 bases had different stories. I can read them to you what they were. They had different jobs that they did in 4 different bases. And so he would talk about, well, I'm going to go over to Mount Inyangani now, and I'm going to look at Mount Hayes. And so this is another thing that we talked about before. He just would go to this place as, well, this is very interesting over here in Mount Perdido, but I think I'll go back up to Hayes. And then his thing would change. And we had to go through the transcript very carefully. Where's he supposed to be talking about now? And then going back to the discussion we had a minute ago, how did he know which one to go to and might be more interesting and so forth? And that's just in the back of my mind now, so to speak.
Okay. So interesting. I used to really be into the whole remote viewing thing. I've never tried it. I should. I think everyone should at least try it. There's like courses you can take now. It's crazy. Oh, 2025. Project Stargate's real. Like, the remote viewing program is real. There's no arguing that. There is absolutely no room for debate on that. However, the effectiveness, the accuracy, the credence that I guess the CIA or the United States government put into that eventually, that can obviously be debated. But that it's claims like this, it's one thing to like remote view something, conventional or like prosaic. I don't know if those are the right words. It's another thing to remote view 4 underground extraterrestrial bases where aliens are working with humans. That's just bug nuts, in my opinion. But I want to get the opinion of someone else because we have more information about this, and it's worth discussing because this guy has the credentials. So he's either running a psyop and disinforming us all, or this is something that actually happened. I don't know. But I want to know what she thinks. So I'm going to bring her in right now. It's the one and only Suzanne, our moderator. There she is. Welcome back.
Hi, and thank you. And I remembered to unmic myself today.
You did.
It's a miracle. It's a Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle. Suzanne, you sent me the photo, so I'm going to show it very quickly.
Okay. All right.
We're going to rewind, guys. The Jimmy Carter story. Suzanne got to meet Jimmy Carter. So let's pull that up because I now have 1 degree of separation from Jimmy Carter. And that's Suzanne. So here it is. Boom. Tell us about this. What was how did this happen? What was it like? And
he is absolutely my favorite modern president because many of the things we talked about. He was just a guy. He was an average guy working a job with a lovely wife who was truly trying to make things better for the planet and people. And I really resonated with him. I was too young to vote for him when he became president, but I followed him very closely. And I was lucky enough, just not too long ahead of the pandemic, but to go visit my parents in Georgia. And we drove early one morning over to where the Carters lived, and the peanut farm was there. And he taught church or Sunday school every Sunday morning, and it was open to the public. And if you waited through the service and got in line, you could have a picture made with him. And so my family did. It's actually this is a small piece of a much bigger family picture, including with my parents and my grown sons and husband and whatnot. All of us together with President Carter and Mrs. Carter.
That's incredible! Wow,
incredible humans.
Yeah. How many people could say they met a former president? I mean, the closest I ever came, Bill and Hillary came to Syracuse, New York, for some sort of fundraising effort or something like that. And there, I used to live near this country club, and I was not a member of the country club. I can tell you that much.
But you know how to climb a fence.
Oh, I could climb a fence or two. I probably did that. Yeah. And I remember one of the holes of this golf course at this country club was right on the corner of a street, like a public street. So, of course, when everyone found out that Bill Clinton was going to be at this country club, not only that, he was going to be golfing. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people showed up, and it was like 2 blocks from my house. So I went, me and my family. And I remember when he finally got to that hole on the corner, he was about to he took out his club and he was about to hit, and my dumbass just yells from across the street, like, "No, use the 5-iron, not the 7-iron." And I'm not kidding you, Suzanne. He turned around and laughed, and the entire crowd. It's one of those situations, like that people make up, like, oh, everyone stood up and clapped when I said that. I'm not kidding you. This actually
Exactly.
happened. Everyone
I love
turned
it.
and looked at me. My mom was petrified. She's like, you're going to get taken away by the Secret Service.
I'm sure they were not pleased, but I'm sure they're used to some of that stuff. I was lucky enough to meet Bill Clinton as well. And I'm from Arkansas originally. And of course, he was governor of Arkansas. And I can remember when he was running the first time in Arkansas for governor. And there's all this hubbub about him and how bright he was and how charismatic. And he showed up at our tiny little Methodist church in the middle of nowhere in Fort Smith, Arkansas, one Sunday morning. And he was just introducing himself in this tiny little place. And so I stood to introduce myself, and he locked eyes with me. And I thought, oh, this is what they're talking about. There was just something very charismatic about that man. Of course, he's just as smart as the day is long. But of course, later I learned to know that's exactly how he probably got himself in trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bill was ready to throw fisticuffs at that point. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, all of these guys have some sort of charisma. Like, there's a way they climbed up that ladder to get to where they are.
That's right.
And oftentimes that's a pretty bad thing, unfortunately. But it's people like Jimmy Carter that give me hope that like there are men out there who, and women, but unfortunately not yet, that have led this country and did it from like the most inner core of their being and their heart and their mind. And then there's others who just wanted the power.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Hard to watch that. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
All right. Well, that's a good, fun story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
But let's get to this weird ass story that we just talked about with remote viewing with this gentleman, former Captain F. Holmes, Skip Atwater. You did a bunch of research on this for me because you're an incredible moderator, and I'm like going around with my like a chicken with my head cut off right now, dealing with weird issues from my flight to Hawaii. With
not easy to be
rupturing. Oh, I hate it. Why am I even talking about this, Suzanne?
What you're tired and sick.
Yes, that's got to be it. What do you make of this entire story? What is some of the stuff you dug up on Atwater and the supposed remote viewing of alien bases?
Right. Well, that's just one aspect of this very interesting guy whom I find extremely credible. If you watch his face and his body language as he's telling these stories, it all reads true. He is certainly also the kind of guy to be in the right place at the right time for this stuff. So this whole thing about the alien bases is one little tiny piece of this enormous interview, like 2.5 hours, I think. And so maybe we could post the link later for people to go watch it, because this is just the tiniest little thing he talked about. He also talked about being in a military meeting. I think that he doesn't actually say that, but there's a meeting of some kind. And he says, like he's saying, I take sugar in my coffee. We're there and the aliens are mixed among us, you know, interwoven with us, or I guess around a table kind of a setting. And he says he got agitated over something. And the aliens, and he told these aliens that what I do basically for a living is I teach humans how to leave their body. And of course, he's talking about remote viewing.
Right.
But that didn't translate. And so the aliens get all kerfuffled and they come to him and they have a little round, tiny object that sounded like an object with maybe like a port to it.
Okay.
But very little. And they stuck it in his leg. And in this thing was some brown liquid, he described. And they squeezed it into him, and he immediately floated into the air in front of all these people, including these aliens. And then the aliens ask him, is this what you mean you teach humans to do? It's like, no, this is not it.
Let's rewind. Let me clarify this.
Yeah. No, this wasn't it. But thanks. Oh, can somebody pull me down now? I'm making that up. That's not in it. That's not in it.
It sounds like Willy Wonka, you know,
Yeah,
when they
Willy
drink
Wonka's on the Wonkavator. There they
soda.
go. Yeah, the bubbles that send you up. Yeah.
Talk about
Anyway.
anti-gravity. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll
Exactly.
get to
We're
that.
gonna get to that. Yeah. Golly. The other
Wow.
thing I think people might enjoy from that video, and it is long though, so you're going to have to just sort of sit yourself down when you can, and everybody, and plow your way through it. But he talks about how wrong we are on the concepts of space and time, and he says there is no space and time. He also, I like the way he talks about this, because he talks about, it's like, I don't really completely understand this, but I understand it enough to say what I'm going to say, kind of way. You know, he's not a physics guy, but he says that everything is everywhere all at once. There's no past, there's no future. You know, all of this is a reflection of consciousness, and it's okay to call consciousness God, or God consciousness, or whatever, but you know, however you want to describe it, but that it only looks to us like space and time are linear, and it's not, and that the Big Bang Theory doesn't work, that they know something else is going on, and that he felt like we would likely eventually figure out through physics that space is in fact infinite, that there is no end to it. You know, so it's big thinking stuff on in his brain, and he rolls it off. I think he's very easy to listen to. Some of this stuff can be really dry. He is not. He's just talking like he's sitting in your living room. So very fascinating to listen to.
He is. And I forget where it was. Someone said in the chat what he called Pat Price, like
What?
a finicky cat or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Finicky, cool, rebellious cat or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I suspect, you know, probably so. But, you
Yeah.
know, I also like this about it, you know, about him. He talked about his own family, his nuclear family growing up.
Mhm.
And he had a very open-minded, liberally thinking family. And he loved to take things apart. And so his dad would wander into the garage, and this guy would be under the car taking it apart, and the dad's not mad. The dad's like, oh, well, I see what you're doing. Good luck. I hope you learn a little something. And on the guy goes, you know, it's like, my dad, if I was taking the car apart, would not be pleased.
Oh, my dad I would never drive again, probably.
That's right.
Ever get my license.
Yeah, but he had that kind of dad. And then his mom, he described as being just really different. And so he said, you know, I was quite used to her talking about her having talked to our deceased cats and dogs. And, you know, he would say something like, I was worried about, you know, so-and-so the cat or whatever. That's what it sounded like. And she would say, well, I just talked to them and they're just fine. They're just fine, you know, blah, blah. So very different, open-minded, you know, not fear-based kind of childhood. And so he got to think the way he wanted to think and explore. And then he told a fascinating story about this car. He told the first one about taking the car apart, and his dad comes in and it's just a-okay. And then he says, but then it got to where I could just get under the car when something was wrong with the car, and I didn't have to take things apart. I could literally see what was wrong, like through the metals or whatever. So it's a fascinating watch if you can find the time.
Interesting, which again circles back to the whole remote viewing thing. Have you seen that documentary that came out, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago? It was called Third Eye Spies.
Yes, I've watched it. It's been a long time, but yes, fascinating.
Yeah, when that thing came out, I had the director, Lance Mungia, on the show to talk about it, who also works with James Fox on his documentaries. And I'd never looked into remote viewing. I had no idea what it was. And I left after that thing being like, oh my God.
I know.
Like, we actually had a funded program, kind of like ATIP with UFOs. We had a program to try to psychic spy on whatever, the Russians, you know, insert boogeyman
exactly
at the time. And just the people who are involved. Like, you look at this photo we have up here, you've got Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ, like all these buzz names from the whole remote viewing community. I highly suggest people go watch that documentary if they want like a crash course on the CIA and the United States government's involvement with remote viewing. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. Have you ever tried it? Have you ever tried?
I haven't, but I also think it's one of those things that you really need to train for.
Yeah.
And I have seen those classes that you're talking about, but I don't know enough about who's offering them to know whether or not that is a reliable source. And it seems to me monkeying around in your subconscious or however this is working needs to be done carefully.
Yeah.
I was thinking not with anybody, right?
It's like with CE5. Like
Yes.
everyone's always like, Ryan, like don't discount it until you've actually
Right.
tried it. And I'm like, I'm afraid to try it. Like I've been with my ghost hunting stuff now.
Yeah.
I'm known as the Ouija guy. Me and another guy on our team, like we're on a Ouija board every single episode. And I'm like, that's enough for me. That I'm like trying to communicate with something and I'm opening a door and I don't know where that door leads.
And you had a few consequences from, a few consequences that weren't ideal. Right.
So, that's why I'm kind of afraid to try CE5. That's why I would be afraid to like remote view and end up like on Mars or something. You know what I mean?
Well, then what if you see something and then what do you do with that?
Exactly.
Right. So getting a piece of information can be a burden. It's not always something wonderful.
Exactly. Like Ingo Swann is another
Right.
prime example when he remote viewed the moon, I believe, and he found beings there and structures and they could actually see him. Like they were looking up at him and he was looking down. That stuff terrifies me.
We have a lot to do on consciousness, don't we?
We do. Yeah. I have a lot to learn. Oh, we all do. Yeah. Is there anything else from this story that we didn't cover before we get to our last big?
I think that's pretty good. Just help me remember, and I'll post the link to the video.
Okay. Yeah.
On the Facebook page or Twitter, wherever.
Yep. I'll put it retroactively in the show notes below
for
you
great.
guys as well. I'm just going up in the chat to see if we missed anything.
Hey, look at Eve Clancy's note. I tried remote viewing from an instruction video years ago and had quite the beginner's luck experience.
I would love to hear about that, Eve.
Yeah.
Like from someone who tried it and had like something happen. Please shoot me an email, Eve, if you're open to that. The email's in the show notes. I'd love to hear anybody. Has anyone in the chat tried it? Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll like actually, I don't know, do a training video and see what happens.
Well, if you do it, I'll do it. But we have to stay connected.
We're like
if anybody goes
spotters at the
floating
gym.
out, they grab the other one.
I love it. I love it. Okay, let's move to our last story of the night, Suzanne. And before we do that,
everybody,
take a deep breath, guys. This is a trigger warning for anyone out there who may be sensitive to such things as combat, Afghanistan, suicide, things like that. We are going to be discussing the Cybertruck bomber incident. So yeah, if you wish to not watch or listen, we completely understand from here on out. But it does involve things like PTSD, alleged suicide, and a lot of controversial subject matter. So viewer and listener discretion is advised from here on out, guys. There is the warning right there. So let's do it. Let's get to it. We had an incident that occurred on January 1st, the 1st of 2025 in the U.S. in Nevada, Las Vegas to be specific. And let me just read this quick little recap here. Matthew Livelsberger was a 37-year-old active duty U.S. Army Special Forces soldier who on January 1st allegedly detonated a Tesla Cybertruck filled with explosives outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. Prior to the explosion, Livelsberger allegedly died by suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The blast resulted in injuries to 7 bystanders. Man, investigations revealed that Livelsberger, had been struggling with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from his military service. he had sought treatment and recognized the need for further help. In notes found on his phone, Livelsberger described the act not as terrorism, but as a wake-up call, expressing grievances against U.S. leadership. According to local authorities in the investigation and the FBI, it was said that he considered, planned, and thoughtfully prepared for this act alone. So everyone knows of kind of the aftermath of this story. And we have been told certain things about why he did it. The motives are still very unclear, but it seems that things are slowly coming to light from official investigation and some unofficial investigations, which is going to lead us to our next clip, Suzanne, that I'm going to show. This once again comes from the Sean Ryan show, because you found that there were some conflicting stories that came out the day after this event. The first being, we've since learned, was from a prior girlfriend or ex-wife. It's still a little unclear. And I do want to say off the bat, like, I'm not the most up to date on the story. I haven't looked into it too much in depth yet, so I do apologize if some things have come forward or developed that I'm not bringing up, or if I'm being kind of passive about things. It's only because I'm not fully up to date on it. A man lost his life. That's very tragic and very sad. But the circumstances are still very unclear on a lot of this. But like we said, conflicting stories. A video he sent to his girlfriend of himself in the Cybertruck shows a happy guy saying he's feeling like Halo or Batman. And then all the messages went quiet on New Year's Eve. The GF, the girlfriend only found out about the bombing when the FBI contacted her, says that she had no idea what happened to him, though he often complained of memory loss, trouble concentrating, and extreme back pain. So a lot going on. I mean, clearly a veteran with severe PTSD symptoms. Very, very sad. However, something happened that came to light with the Sean Ryan show with a gentleman named Samuel Shoemate, who was a retired Army intelligence officer, and something he brought forward, Suzanne, which was this, I guess, manifesto or email that he had sent to this intelligence officer, who then brought it to the Sean Ryan show. So I'm going to show the clip in its entirety of, I want to get his name right, Shoewater, was it?
Shoemate.
Excuse me, Samuel Shoemate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show him reading the email because it's disturbing, especially when you know what eventually happened. But it's also very cryptic, and it also brings up something that connects it to the UAP topic, allegedly. So is there anything I missed before we go to the clip?
I think that's great. And maybe we can pull it together afterwards.
Okay, sounds
pull
good.
Together the conflicts.
Sounds good. So we're going to go ahead, guys, and play that clip of Samuel Shoemate talking to Sean Ryan and about this email that he received the day before this all happened. I can't even imagine. So here we go. Give this a watch. Again, trigger warning, guys. A lot of this is very disturbing. Yeah. Here we go.
The email?
Yep. So this email came in on December 31st at 10:42 a.m. That is Tuesday. He said, "In case I do not make it to my decision point or on to the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones," he puts that in quotes, he says drones, "is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China and the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we in China have this capability. Our OPCEN, that's Operations Center, our OPCEN location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they used the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comms system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. U.S. government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive V-bid. Let me pause right there for a second. So he says a massive V-bid. When I was talking to the FBI yesterday, they didn't know what a V-bid was. I had to explain what that acronym meant, literally.
You fucking serious?
Dead serious. I said it twice and he goes, you said that word V-bid. Can you tell me what that is? For your audience, a V-bid, for your audience who has not been in the GWOT for the last 20 years, a V-bid is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. In layman's terms, a car bomb, what we saw at Trump Tower. So, backing up, he says, I am armed and have a massive V-bid. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. Here's where he gets into the other stuff, and this is where we had to redact the names. Well, your producer redacted the names. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civcas, that's civilian casualties, that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in CENTCOM. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with U.S. FORA, an agent, redacted, of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with, redacted, IO staff on this as well as the response to Bala Murghab. Redacted commander at the time, redacted can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. Then he says, for vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, an active duty 18 Zulu out of 110, that's 1st Battalion 10th Special Forces Group. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP, USAP access.
What is USAP? Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. But I checked his credentials on LinkedIn. So that was the first thing I did. I went to his LinkedIn page. First thing I noticed was all of his bona fides were in place. He has all the UAS training from USASOC and everything else. And so I said, okay, at least the guy knows what he's talking about with drones. That was a very rough dig into the guy. But my issue was I couldn't validate or verify any of this information. And I told him that. And how I responded to him was in a subsequent email. I said, this is obviously a very big deal, but I don't have anything to verify this information with. Talking about gravitic propulsion systems without evidence just makes me another UFO talking head. Like, I'm not going to go on my social media page and start talking about UFOs and anti-gravity systems and everything. I don't know what you're talking about. I can't. And he said, can I get on Fox News Contact on Signal as well as Sean's show? Hegseth would be good too. That was his last message to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, what is a gravitic propulsion system?
To be honest with you, it is a fancy term you're going to find in science fiction. You won't find it in any, as far as I know, you won't find this in any kind of official manual or, scientific research. This is all science fiction. So, but what struck me is his use, what strikes me now, not then, but what strikes me now is his use of a very specific term that nobody else would call it. If you asked me, I would say an anti-gravity propulsion system. That's how I would describe it because I don't know this stuff. He said gravitic propulsion system.
We looked that up last night too, and all we could find was same thing, science fiction type stuff. Was there something in that email again that said that this would prevent World War III with the UAP?
Well,
drones?
it didn't say it would prevent World War III, but he was asking that. He said you need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war because this is a mutually assured destruction situation.
I wonder what he's trying to do with these, what he's trying to tell us with these drones.
I hesitate to even get into this realm because I have no expertise in drones or, let's just call it alien technology, UFO technology, whatever's going on here. But here's one thing that I talked about with the guys downstairs earlier. Several weeks ago, I don't know if you saw that video. It was a New Jersey sheriff or chief of police. I can't remember which, but he flew their own drone up, their own department drone up to try to figure out what was going on. So we had all these drone issues that were being cited off of New Jersey and everything. And what he commented on video was how fast these things were. He said, we have a pretty robust drone, and they flew it up there to try to catch these drones that were there, and they just, bam, they were gone. He said there was no catching them, never seen anything like it. They don't even know, they have no idea what that could have been. And so you have this capability that is, I guess, in line with what we hear about anti-gravity being. And I don't know. It makes you wonder.
Well, you have the stuff with Ryan Graves and is it Dan Favor, Dave Favor?
Commander David Favor.
The Commander David Favor, who, you know, was it the Nimitz?
He was in the Nimitz strike group in 2004.
Yeah, the Nimitz strike group in 2004 that reported those UAPs coming out of the water that had no propulsion system.
I remember
that. All right. Oops. Trying to unmute you. Sorry, Suzanne.
I couldn't keep my glory, could I? Unmuting myself. A USAP, by the way, is an unacknowledged special special access program.
Correct.
And that they use those hidden around, typically in like Lockheed Martin or
Schellenberger used that a lot with the Immaculate Constellation thing. So yeah, that's definitely a term we're getting used to in the UFO field. We're definitely used to the term UAP, and I'm sure that caught a hell of a lot of people's attention when he said at the end of this email, like, I worked on UAP. Which, you know, obviously could very well just mean drones. This gentleman worked with drones. It was like the meat of his work. So I don't even know where to begin with all of this.
Well, I have an idea. I did a lot of research over a couple of days on him individually. I watched lots of videos, read lots of documents. And here's what I think on that. He is highly trained at his job. He was highly trusted in his position by our government, and he was highly trusted by his peers, his comrades in arms. And I think that says a whole lot. They also report, the ones who came forward about him, that there were no clues that he was in a bad place with mental health. Mm-hmm. So I think that's your start, Mark. But then I also think that there was, unless you want to go full on conspiracy, and I don't think that's where we're headed, I think you do have to start with the fact that there is a mental health issue in play. Absolutely. And we have to allow that to somewhat color how we view what he has said and done. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The existence of a mental health problem does not necessarily invalidate what he's saying. Here's where I think we might get into some validation issues, though. So we know the official line, which is that he had PTSD and was suicidal, and but he was a decorated combat guy, you know, well-respected veteran. And then I learned that he had in fact been diagnosed with depression about a year ago, but that they did not test him or analyze him for violence or suicide tendencies. And I don't understand that. That does not make sense to me. That piece of the puzzle is out for me. You would think anybody with access to government secrets, weaponry, etc., that would be the norm. If someone is struggling, you step in and help and you assess, right? Because you can end up in a catastrophic situation. So that's problem number one. But then there's also a trail of documents and notes. They found, despite that explosion, which was really something, really intense explosion, they found 2 cell phones in the car and I think an ID. And they got into the cell phone and they found 2 letters that had been, I guess, either sent or were existing on the phone itself. And they also found some notes in a note-taking app. The first letter says this, and I'm just going to read it if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Fellow service members, veterans, and all Americans, time to wake up, ! All caps. We are being led by weak and feckless leaders who only serve to enrich themselves. Military and vets, move on DC starting now. Militias facilitate and augment this activity. Occupy every major road along Fed buildings and the campus of the Fed buildings by the hundreds of thousands. Lock the highways down with semis right after everybody gets in. Hold until the purge is complete. Try peaceful means first, but be prepared to fight to get the Dems out of the federal government and military by any means necessary. They must go, and a hard reset must occur for our country to avoid collapse. And then he electronically signs it, MSG, Matt Livelsberger, 18Z, 10th Special Forces Group. So that is unusual. That is an unusual position to be taking and dramatic. This was also shortly before all this happened. Well, the next note they found said something to the effect was, we're being led by weak and feckless leadership who only serve to enrich themselves, which may have been like a practice, I guess, for the bigger document. This was in a note, not a document. But his gripe was not with President Trump, even though he chose the Trump Tower in Las Vegas to do this. His gripes were against Kamala Harris and the Democratic structure. And he was quite public and vocal, positively on Trump's side and negatively on Harris's side. So there is a political overlay of this stuff that we've got to balance somehow. Well, the second note that they found on one of these phones was called a surveillance log. And it's described as containing a journal of activity, is what he called it. And it started about 10 days before the bombing. And the Las Vegas police chief is the one who confirmed all this. I was able to read what was written there. And they were able to identify all the locations that he took to Las Vegas, as well as activity that police also saw in other surveillance clips they were able to get, such as purchasing firearms and camping equipment and whatnot. We have some links to those letters and whatnot. If anybody would like to have those, we could post those. We're giving a very, very brief version of them here. But if you need more, they're out there. Yeah. And then on New Year's Eve, we have yet another dimension and another perspective from him. He sent the video that you mentioned, Ryan, to, it's either his girlfriend or a prior girlfriend, but depending on where I was reading, they were reporting that relationship differently. I'm not sure it matters, but he was in direct communication with her. And he is laughing and happy. He's inside the Cybertruck. And he says exactly what you quoted, was that makes me feel like Halo or Batman. And he's having a great time. And there's an NBC video of that clip that was turned over, obviously, to reporters and to authorities, if you want to see that. But then later in New Year's Eve, the messages went quiet. He went silent. And she literally only found out what had happened the next day when FBI contacted her. She had no idea. Then there's another action by him, which is this email that we watched the video on, Sam Shoemate. And I would encourage everyone to go watch that much longer video. And I think it's maybe an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah. But do it quietly and thoughtfully. Because it clearly upset Mr. Shoemate and also Sean Ryan, who's hosting that show. They didn't know what to do about it. And Mr. Shoemate describes at one point some other contact directly from this fellow to him. And it turned out, by the way, that Sean Ryan's show had also been contacted through their welcome portal on their website, but he didn't know that at the time. They literally, at the conclusion of this video, went and scrubbed their contact system and found it. And of course, it was too late to do anything about it at that point. But Mr. Shoemate describes at length, he's clearly upset. He says, the guy said something to him like, after we have this conversation, delete this. It was on Instagram, I think. And Mr. Shoemate did as asked. Apparently that's not uncommon for him. It may happen to you too. I don't know, where I want to tell you this, but I don't want it sitting out here in space. And so the guy did. But then he gets this email, and the email, of course, says not to release it until the next day. If he doesn't get to his kind of escape point or the Mexican border. So I don't know what to make of all this. I will tell you from personal experience, regrettably, that serious suicides do not give clues that that's what they're doing. And we have to weave that knowledge somehow into this tragic human story about what's going on with him. The serious ones, their plan is made. They're doing what they're going to do. And you're not going to get a clue for the most part that something's wrong, because people will intervene and stop the plan if they're that serious. So I don't know. I do think because of the respect that his peers had for him and his technical abilities in his line of work, I do think that we need to focus on what he knew about UAP. And we may never have a way to actually get to concrete information about it, but I do find it odd. I'm not a huge Greer fan. I'm not a hater, but neither am I a huge fan. And I sort of take it statement by statement. But earlier in the week, just before this happened, Greer did do a video talking about these drones. And in this video, he says these drones are Chinese. Mm-hmm. This is basically a power statement. And we need to, and a disinformation campaign. There's some of them are from America. Most of them are Chinese. But so it's those same two countries that this gentleman is talking about, and that it was anti-gravitical. So, I don't know. Concerning, and yet there's something there.
It's so hard. Like, we're going to be tippy-toeing around this entire story, as anyone should be. Like, no one should as definitive proof that this guy worked on unidentified aerial phenomena, or that, this wasn't a quote-unquote suicide, or like the conspiracy theories, they fill in the gaps of uncertainty. They always have. Don't they? And that is ufology.
It is. And I submit it's too simple. It's too simple an approach.
Yeah.
It makes us feel better in that moment because we think we have an answer to something that's concerning, but it is too simple an approach.
It is. And look, like I've been watching the back and forths in like the real world of like Twitter. Oh God, I can't believe I just said the real world of Twitter.
Well, it is its own world, right?
Yeah. And then even like the more vacuum sealed UAP UFO Twitter. And look, end of the day, someone died. This is very tragic. And I'm seeing people going back and forth like there's no way, that he could have killed himself and then detonated the bomb.
Right.
Like that.
All that's going on now with people that claim they've got video that he's still alive at the time of the explosion. And I think we just set all that aside. I don't know. Except, what are we going to do about that, right?
Yeah. Two things really, and I want to stick with just the email right now that was brought up on the Sean Ryan show. A lot of people pointed out that the email had the little squiggly grammatical error lines in it. And very good that people brought this up. A former veteran brought this up on his channel where he said, why would a email that was sent be in draft mode? Because that's when those grammatical errors will pop up, when it's in draft mode before you send it. a very good point to make.
Well, and
He
I was
also said-
testing it today too, by the way, with Dalen, the angry
Yeah.
sauerkraut. And thank you, Dalen. That was very kind of you to give me some time on this. But I said, would you please make up some crazy stuff in Word and then copy and paste that into an email and send that to me and let me see, is that stuff popping up? And it's not. And I can't find an answer for that. I don't see it. Maybe someone in the chat knows, but
Yeah.
I've been digging and can't find it and can't reproduce it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I see that side of the argument. This former veteran also said that this Samuel Shoemate has been known to bend the truth, has been known to quote unquote fake emails. So like the concern is there that this could either be a made up email that he put together, or this was not the individual who lost his life, who sent this to him, that this was maybe a hoax. But I have a brief clip, Suzanne, that I want to play, sort of the most current acknowledgement of this email that was shown on the Sean Ryan show. I found this interesting. So I'm going to play it, and I want to get your thoughts, if that's cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So the question is, how would I describe his state of mind in the manifesto that was described on the podcast? Have we been able to determine whether that was from him or not? And I'll answer the first part is, I'm not comfortable giving you state of mind just yet. I certainly am leaning a particular way, but again, I'd like to be factual to you. I think when you read the documents that we're going to give you a link to at the end of this press conference, that you can go in and make some of your own assumptions about what that is. But I will tell you that part of my hesitation on that is, I know that we have a lot more documents and number of things for us to uncover. And so I want to be able to provide to you only the factual information when I have it. And so I'm not going to opine on what I believe his state of mind was at that particular time. But certainly you can see some troubling aspects in his personal life as well. And I don't know if you want to address the second part, Spencer.
Yeah, so in terms of the so-called manifesto that's circulating online, we have strong evidence to suggest that it was the subject that wrote it, but we haven't conclusively proven that yet. And that evidence relates to other evidence that we're finding that we're able to compare that lead us to believe it was in fact him who sent it.
I mean, I don't know. We're getting such conflicting things from local authorities, FBI, now the Sean Ryan show, and this Shoemate individual. No one can make sense of this because so much doesn't add up. Like,
and that clip right there is why I reached out to Dalen to say, let's see if we can recreate this. How would this possibly work? And we couldn't do it. The other thing that I think is interesting is that he was on Signal, the chat app, and which is encrypted and whatnot. And I think it was the Las Vegas Police Department, maybe not, don't hold me to that, but somebody in authorities said that they had confirmed that his Signal safety code, which I don't know if you're on Signal, but it will ask us every once in a while, to put our secret code in to verify that it's us. And I guess it shuts you down if you don't have the right code. They could confirm that his Signal safety code changed after his time of death. I don't know what to do with that. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It's just, oh, man.
I know. I think you ought to talk a minute about your Black Vault document, the 2018 FOIA request.
Okay.
I mean, that was fascinating, Ryan. Had you just been sitting on that? Or would you even get that? All this scouring I've done, and you pop up with this gem.
Robert said, you guys have to increase this to 3 hours. How many? I don't think either of us could do that, man. But that's extremely kind of you.
It's so sweet. At least we're not boring him, right?
Exactly. We could probably talk about this story alone for 3 hours.
For days, right?
Yeah. But
the FOIA request sent by John Greenwald.
Yeah.
Guys, Ryan sent this to me yesterday afternoon and just almost like with no comment. And I popped that thing up like, what the heck?
I wanted to show you and maybe talk with the audience here a little bit that like The idea of gravitics or anti-gravity has been talked about at length for many, many years. There's been speculation for decades about it. There's a wonderful book written by Nick Cook, who's a aerospace and defense writer. I had the amazing opportunity to interview him for a lengthy article I wrote about black triangles, actually. And he did a lot of early research on anti-gravity and have we cracked the code of 0-point energy, things like you mentioned that Stephen Greer talks about a lot. And John Greenwald actually posted this on his Twitter recently about he put in an FOIA request for any information pertaining to anti-gravity work. He did this back in 2018, actually. Right. And he received, I don't know who sent it to him, like DOD or...
It was DOI.
DOI. What's DO?
Department of Information or whatever that is. Okay. Intelligence. Department of Intelligence.
These acronyms, I tell you.
I know. We need a spreadsheet. I'll work on it.
Thank you. If anyone could make it, it's me. So John received a presentation material entitled Anti-Gravity, a Presentation to NAMRAD Principles, October 2004, by a gentleman named Richard L. Jones. I have linked the entire presentation in the show notes, so if you guys want to go read that, you're more than welcome. But basically, Suzanne, you summarized this for me, sort of the key points. Do you want to read them out, or would you like?
I'm happy to. It's worth a read. It will not take you 5 or 6 minutes to do it, but the document is actually from 2004. So what I'm about to tell you has been in play since 2004. So lots of time to perfect what we're about to talk about. There was a meeting in London of this group that Ryan just named, and they had this guy, the presenter, had become aware of some work done by a Russian named, I'm not going to say this properly, I'm going to do my best, Mr. Pod. It's a longer name than that. Mr. Pod.
Podkletnov.
Podkletnov. Yeah, okay. I'm going to stick with Mr. Pod. On gravitational fields altering directly above a rotating disk. And he had also worked on plasma discharge from a superconducting magnet that was generating anti-gravity waves. So NASA, the report says, is trying to replicate the claim. So they're working on it, obviously. He searched the internet at the time for the original Russian publications and came upon what he called anti-gravity lifters. They were an asymmetrical capacitor using high voltage to produce a directional thrust. Sounding familiar, people? Was it, and he poses, is it an electromagnet propulsion system? Question mark. There are no moving parts. It has silent flight. It uses only electrical energy. It can lift its own weight plus an additional payload. NASA has patents on this stuff from as early as January and June of 2002. Ionic motion is involved. That's when ions are naturally attracted to the opposite charge. So they're using that already existing principle for propulsion. He says he still doesn't understand how it works, but they're trying to figure it out. And the work was being done in the UK through what's called DSTL, the Defense Science and Technology Lab. The initial work, he reports, was showing promise and that this can be used for vehicular propulsion. And there is a reference that about being stealth, but it was too cryptic. I didn't know what to make of it. You might, but I didn't.
No, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah. And all the physics, you guys, just unless you're a physics person, holy moly, that part, that's why it's not going to take you very long to read, because it's just crazy math. And that's over my pay grade, but fascinating.
It's interesting. And the reason we're bringing this up, guys, is because of the claims that were made by the individual who this incident, the Cybertruck incident, is based on. And the reason we're bringing it up is because it would be so easy to just say these are the ramblings of, a crazy person or a a disturbed person. This individual clearly was suffering from PTSD. There's no doubt in anyone's mind really about that, I think. But it's these other sort of more fantastical claims that were said in this manifesto. So we wanted to show that there is some credence to some of the claims he's making, whether it's China that is in possession of this technology or the United States. And there was something I found actually last night, Suzanne, as I was kind of digging into this when it comes to anti-gravity propulsion technology in the United States and China. There is a individual, a Chinese American physicist named Ning Li. Are you familiar with her at all?
Not, no.
Okay,
I'm
so
gonna write her name down.
yeah, it's Ning, first name, and then last name Li, Li. In the early 1990s, physicist Ning Li published a series of controversial papers theorizing about anti-gravity. In 2001, she received a Defense Department contract to fund experimental efforts based on her theories. And in 2004, Ning Li mysteriously disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
Many believed that she went back to China to give the government her findings on anti-gravity. So, the reason I'm bringing this up is not to say that I believe this conspiracy theory, but it is to show once again that there are physicists out there. You look at the work of Salvador Pais, those papers that came out a couple years ago, Ning Li, there's many other individuals who have claimed that anti-gravity exists. We cracked the code, we have it. And this all ties into this big dizzying web that this individual has claimed. That we've cracked the code of anti-gravity. China has it. We have it. This could be a big problem moving forward. And
it could also be a big benefit too, because if it's related to 0-point energy, which by the way, love him or hate him, Stephen Greer's been talking about for a decade, that our government has the ability and the knowledge to do 0-point energy, making endless energy available to every human, clean, costless, blah, blah. Then you kind of see these pieces going together in that direction, especially with Mr. Greenwald's FOIA document from the, from DOI. So I don't know. Just crazy pieces of a puzzle that look tangentially related,
Yeah, I know. And again, this all has been birthed from the uncertainty of this event that took place in Las Vegas, and it will remain that way. And the conspiracy theories will just get bigger and worse if we, don't really narrow in. So we're at this point, Suzanne, where in the world right now, it's very hard to trust or believe what officialdom tells us about anything.
It is.
And
they're not making it easy.
They're not making it easy. So it's frustrating because at the end of the day, a lot of people could have died from this event. One individual died, the individual who did this event. But 7 innocent people were injured, apparently, which is horrible. That's terrible. So this stuff shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be at this point where someone allegedly is doing this big spectacle to try to get people's attention to bring things to light. One of the big things they brought to light was these war crimes that happened in Afghanistan.
And by the way, the UN agrees with that. The UN calls them war crimes, and then somehow nothing happened. So I do think we have a kernel of truth there, pretty big one.
Yeah. Yep. But then you have that's one thing that's real, that's documented, that's proven. And then over here we have, China has anti-gravity. The UAP are China, and we can't prove that. So,
but you know what's not being said, Ryan? It's important that at points like this to look at what is not being said by the government. The government has not come forward and said, this is ridiculous. China does not have this. We do not have this. Nobody is saying that. And that is not helpful either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Some people might think we just wasted the last 45 minutes talking about this, but at the end of the day, it's very unfortunate. It's not how any of us wanted to ring in the new year,
No.
but this individual clearly wanted to get a message out. Whether we believe that message or not is yet to be seen or proven, but it's just sad. It's tragic.
It is.
It's truly
It
tragic.
is. And I think that that's where you go to at the conclusion of the brain spinning on the substantive issues, and you land it with a well wish for him and his family. And
Absolutely. Yep. And those injured by this event, that's going to haunt them for the rest of their lives too. So
Right.
I don't know. I don't know where we go from here, but we got to just, take it one day at a time and see what happens,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, and one of the governments needs to come forward. China, US,
Yeah.
somebody needs to say something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh boy. All right.
I know.
Well, let's
No.
end it there. We've gone a little over 2 hours. I'm going to tease people with what's to come on Somewhere in the Skies in the very near future. But Suzanne, I want to thank you for your diligent work on this episode. You truly shed some light on things and helped
So
me
glad.
with this one as I traveled, as you traveled. I know you're bouncing all over
I
the
don't even
world.
know where
right
I
now.
am right now.
Yeah, I know.
Somewhere
Oh, a lot of people in the chat are dying to know, what is that disembodied leg behind you?
A disembodied leg. Oh, it's Bill Lander's leg.
Yep. I knew that, but I didn't want to
I
say
thought it might be the dog, but it's my sweet Bill.
He's amazing, putting up
He
with the
is.
two of
Patient
us
man. Patient
for
man.
over 2 hours
Yeah.
as we discuss this. But Suzanne, I want to thank you
Oh,
again
yeah.
for coming on
Sure.
here. It's always
Anytime.
a breath of fresh air to get you in on the conversation.
Oh, glad to help. Glad to help.
Thank
Hope you're
you.
feeling better soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, is there somewhere they can do that?
Sure. I'm on Facebook as Suzanne Westerman Landers, and I'm on Twitter as C Suzanne Landers. And just send a message through Messenger if you can't find me in one of those places, and I'll help connect you where you need to be.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I will let you go back into the chat as we wrap things up, and have fun on your excursions,
I will.
present and future. All
I
right.
will. Good night.
Good night. All right, guys. Again, special thank you to Suzanne for helping us really try to get through this crazy story. I know you guys are talking about it in the chat like crazy. So I encourage you to continue that chat over on our Discord. There should be a link in the show notes below. We'll be talking about all of this stuff over there after we wrap things up here. But before we do that, let me double check in the chat to see if I missed anything. Metal Hendrix, Ryan, do you still sell alien coffee? Unfortunately not, Metal Hendrix. I worked with 2 different coffee roasters in the past, Black Triangle Coffee and Alien Bean Coffee. And since then, both of them have unfortunately moved on to other things. But I had the incredible pleasure to work with both of them on exclusive roasts for Somewhere in the Skies. And you guys know me, I'm a huge coffee nerd. I am a barista by trade. And ufologist by night, I guess you could say. But yeah, that answers that mystery. Unfortunately, no more Somewhere in the Skies coffee. Maybe in the future. If anyone knows any coffee roasters that are looking to team up or partner, I'd love to do that. Eve says, will you be posting links to the clips? Yes, we'll be sure to post links to everything in the chat. It's so hard because you never know what's going to come up. So then you have to go back and try to find the links and everything. But I'll try my best to do that for you. Suzanne has a bunch of them saved as well. Awesome. So we'll play all of your other messages as we close things out, guys. But before we do that, coming at you just a couple hours, we have a brand new episode of Somewhere in the Skies. I had to bump this one back, so it might look a little familiar, but we haven't released it. Patreon subscribers have it. Apple Premium subscribers have it early. But dropping tonight on the main feed is UFOs, Who Knows? And we're going to be interviewing Ryan S. Wood and Anthony D. Lorenzo, who came out with a brilliant new book called UFOs Who Knows, where they basically compile a list of everything from politicians, scientists, astronauts, celebrities, you name it, all the quotes that have ever been out there in the public about UFOs by all of these different types of individuals have been put into this one book. I love this book. It's a conversation starter. It could be a conversation ender for some people, but I love just having it with me and going through. It even inspired a past live stream of mine where Suzanne and I deconstructed quotes by many celebrities and their personal UFO sightings. So it inspired me to create an entire episode, and I hope this episode interviewing the authors will inspire you as well. So be on the lookout for this dropping in just a couple hours for you guys. UFOs Who Knows, featuring Ryan S. Wood and Anthony D. Lorenzo, two really awesome guys who created this book together. And then next week, we have an awesome episode coming to you called Lesser Known UFO Incidents. I worked with my researcher and colleague, Marcus Loth, to bring you guys some of the most there it is. I forgot the poll again. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. The poll, Pat is always on top of it too. Oh, I love you guys. So be on the episode. Everyone want to be on the episode? Be on the lookout for the episode called Lesser Known UFO Incidents in the very near future. I guarantee you have not heard of some of these UFO incidents. So let's go to the poll. What did I ask? I didn't even remember. Let me refresh it just in case. Oh, okay. So trigger warning once again, guys. It does allude to the Cybertruck incident. Our poll was, is the Cybertruck bomber manifesto real or hoax? 20 out of 123 votes, 23% of you said yes. My question doesn't make sense. Now, is it real or hoax? I don't know what I was doing there. Well, anyways, 23% of you said yes, 7% said no, 56% of you said not enough information, 15% of you said not worth discussing. So I don't know how I messed that up. Is it real or hoaxed? Yes. Is it real or hoaxed? No. Wow. Way to go, Ryan. But all that being said, I think it's most important that 56% of you said not enough information, which is, that's the truth right there. We don't have enough information to know if it is real or hoax. Local authorities and, members of the FBI said they do believe that manifesto, that email did come from the individual. So that's interesting too. 15% of you said not worth discussing, which is also interesting. This may have nothing to do with UFOs, but at the end of the day, it was in that email. We thought it would be worth discussing. All right, I'm going to go to your start stuff, guys, and then we are out of here. Sound good? If you want to get in any last super chats or super stickers and help support our new microphone fund, you can do that right now. Let me see. Thank you. You guys are being amazing. Thank you, guys. Awesome. We will play these during the closing, guys. So if there aren't any more questions, that's it. Thank you. Thank you to all of you for being here today on what was a jam-packed episode. My God. I got to get out of here. We got plans for the rest of the day. I know Suzanne does as well. Please take part in our raffle contest. You can do that right now by going over to Apple Podcasts and rating and reviewing Somewhere in the Skies. Send me a screenshot of your rating and review, and I will be sure to put you in the raffle, which will now, the new deadline will be January 14th. So you have until January 14th to put in your rating and review. Send me a screenshot. You can do that by sending it to our email address, which is in the show notes. It's ryan.sprague51@gmail.com. Or you can shoot me a DM on all social media with a screenshot of your rating and review as well. You will be put into a raffle to win the first volume of Blue Book, which is a comic book inspired by Project Blue Book. And you'll also win another surprise gift from me personally as well. So yeah, you can go do that right now, and you have until January 14th for that. Please like, subscribe, share the show if you haven't, and put your comments in the comments below. We'd love that as well. And thank you. Thank you to all of our super chatters who I see we have a new one. Thank you so much, James Craig. Truly do appreciate that, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Thank you, Patreon subscribers, Apple Premium subscribers, super chatters, super stickers, PayPal, buy me a coffee, all that good stuff. I'm getting excited. Join us over on Discord right after this, where we will continue the conversation. Link for that is in the show notes. And be on the lookout for our brand new episode of the podcast premiering in just a couple hours. It's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you will join us next week for another live stream. And yeah, we got a lot to look forward to in 2025. I have some awesome guests coming up and episodes for you. So yeah, be on the lookout for that very soon. I will leave you, as always, with our mantra here, and that is keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies. Have a good morning, night, afternoon, and keep looking up.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.